Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to Pathways. My name is Tasnim and I'll be your host for tonight inshallah. So tonight we'll be discussing the different routes of getting into medicine. So the most common or well-known route of getting into medicine is applying as an undergraduate through UCAS to different medical schools. However, you can also apply as a postgraduate after, undertaking another degree if you don't manage to get in the first way. And there are also other universities that have other schemes in place to enable, people to transfer into medicine. And St. George's is actually one of those universities who has a scheme like this. And some of our guests today will be elaborating on this for us. Now, today we have been joined by some medical students, as you can see, who will be sharing and comparing and contrasting their experiences of getting into medicine. So without further ado, we're just going to begin. But before that, I just want to invite anyone who's watching to join our conversation by calling up on the hotline at the bottom of the screen if you have any questions whatsoever. But, okay, so shall we start? And do you want to just introduce yourself to everyone?
Okay. Hello, my name is Tasnim. I'm a fourth-year medical student from St George's, University of London.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Famida Ali. I'm a final year medical student from St George's University.
Okay, thank you.
And my name is Mohammed Mahmood. I'm a fifth-year medical student from Imperial College London.
Okay, thank you. This bit's always awkward because I have to pretend I don't know you guys. I went to school with Tasnim, so we go way back. So we went to school together from like year 7. And Mohammed actually goes to university with me, so we've been studying in the same year for the past 5 years. And I've met Famida today.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too.
So I think it would be a good place to just tell everyone why you guys are actually studying medicine, because people's reasons do differ quite a lot, even if you do give the same kind of standard answer in interviews. So Tasnim, do you want to start, please?
Well, everyone is going to say this, but an interest in science is really the beginning of, wanting to pursue medicine. I always enjoyed biology. I wasn't too amazing at chemistry, but I didn't let that stop me. And I just found it really fascinating to learn about the human body. I remember reading all the horrible science books in the library and exhausting
with the cheesy jokes.
Yeah, just exhausting every book available to me. And I think it was only after I really undertook work experience that I realized that this was a career that I wanted to pursue further. Yeah.
I think that's common for most people, as in that's the same for me. When I went to my work experience, I was meant to be there for I think 2 weeks. I spent like a month there literally because I loved it so much. And I stayed in the hospital until like 6 p.m. just because I really loved being there. And it was at that point when I realized, there's nothing I would rather do. Famida, do you want to tell us about your reasons, please?
So I think initially when I was in school, I think my reasons were very similar to Tasnim's. So it was my love for science and biology, and I just enjoyed the topics, which is why I thought it'd be a career that I'd enjoy. But I feel like as I've grown up, my reasons for studying medicine, wanting to carry on studying, have changed quite a bit. So I feel like now it's more because seeing people go through trials and stuff like financial difficulties, relationship difficulties, I feel like when your health declines or when you see someone getting really unwell in your own family, I think health is very, very important, and it's something that I hope to perhaps one day contribute to, helping someone get better maybe, or just helping the pain be less painful, I guess. But yeah, so my reasons have changed.
I
Do you see what I
again,
mean?
yeah, no, that definitely, is something that resonates with me as well, because, when you're, as much as I'd like to think that work experience is what kind of, that was my defining point where I realized, yes, I do want to do medicine. As I've kind of gone through medical school, as I've been on placement and I've seen the experiences that, the real life experiences that people go through and patients go through, you realize how much of an impact you as a medic can have, on their outcome, or even just that one encounter you have with a patient where you just talk to them for like, 5 to 10 minutes, that can literally change, that can have such a big impact, and it's really important to not underestimate that. So I see what you mean, and it's a very holistic thing as well, because you talked about financial difficulties, social circumstances. Medicine is, an art. You do deal with every aspect of a person's life. It's not just about their health; it's about their mental well-being and helping them manage and just live, right?
Exactly.
So, Okay, so Mohammed, tell us about your reasons, please.
So it's very, very similar to Famida's and Tasneem's, obviously. I always had like an affinity for the sciences, particularly the life sciences, throughout secondary school, and that led to me picking like the certain subject of the selection of A levels. I did have a couple of other career choices in mind, so possibly a career in law or possibly a career in engineering, but I guess this was the profession that probably aligned to my values most, so like trying to help people, but also being able to pursue research in life sciences and also making a larger impact on a person and potentially a much larger group of people if I decide to pursue, for example, management or other kind of things in the NHS or wherever. So yeah, there's a large in this field. There's such a large like breadth and scope what you can do, and like so many different avenues you can take in terms of career paths and everything. So it's not just you're not just restricted. So it really appealed to me in that way.
And that actually really reminds me of a conversation that I had with someone where she said that she'd either pick, investment banking or medicine, but the key defining factor between the two was that whilst investment banking, for example, could potentially bring out, the worst streaks in her in terms of, that competitiveness, and that, it's about money. Obviously, this isn't true for everyone, but this is her experience, and it's something that I thought, I could relate to as well. Whilst that would bring out the worst traits in her, medicine brings out the best in her. So I feel like that was, that's food for thought as well. All right. So the thing is, I just want to mention that Mohammed actually applied as an undergraduate to medicine, and
So I did a transfer at George's.
okay, so both Tasnim and Famida did the transfer at St. George's, and they're going to tell us about how they actually had this motivation to study medicine at a later stage. And they're just going to talk a bit more about the transfer process. So Famida, do you want to start and tell us about what it actually is?
Yeah, so the transfer program at St. George's is open to biomedical science students. So you have to complete the 3 years of biomedical sciences, and after that, if you get a certain percentage in the first and second year, you can apply for the transfer program. And then in your second year of biomedical science, you get invited for an interview, and then they give you a conditional offer, so you have to get a first or a 2-1. And then in your third year of biomedical science, if you get the offer, if you get the qualification, and then so then you get transferred onto the third year medicine, and then they just treat you as a third year medical student. So it's a huge jump, but they do offer you quite a bit of support in the summer before you start medicine.
Okay, and how? Can you tell us a bit more about what motivated you to pursue this? Because it is quite a long time. And do you want to start, Tasnim?
Yeah. Okay. Well, medicine was always something that I wanted to apply for. Having done work experience in secondary school and just before my A levels, I knew that was something that I wanted to pursue further. But when it came to my A levels, I didn't get the grades. I got A, B, B, and for most medical schools, you need to get 3 A's minimum. So I knew that there was no way that I could apply. Most medical schools also don't take A level retakes either. So I had no option but to think about alternative routes into medicine. And actually, I was lucky enough to have attended summer school at St. George's in the summer between year 12 and year 13. So that was an opportunity that came to me completely by chance. I literally walked into the office in my sixth form and seen the form lying on the table, and no one had advertised it. It was literally just one form. Just there. So I filled it out, handed it in. I was lucky enough to get selected, attended the summer school, and that's where that was the first time I'd actually even heard about St. George's, because St. George's is situated in Tooting Broadway in South London, somewhere I'd never been before that summer school. I spent 5 days attending that summer school, being treated like a university student, going to lectures, workshops, and finding out about all the different healthcare careers that St. George's offer, like healthcare science, paramedic science, physiotherapy, medicine, and biomedical science. So I was able to learn about a broad range of careers and see which one would suit me best. And after the end of that week, I was still convinced that I wanted to pursue medicine. during that week, I'd spoken to some older students who had told me about the transfer program at George's, and they told me that 20 students would be selected from a year group cohort of about 120 students at the time. No, sorry, 200?
So I think in my cohort was like 200.
200, yeah, sorry, 220 in my cohort. In Fahmida's year, it was 200, so Fahmida was in the year above me. So roughly around 200 to 220 students go for this scheme. Most students on the biomedical course want to pursue the transfer when they do it, because
that's why they enter the course,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And about 60 people are offered the interview. So at the end of the first 2 years, about 60 people have the minimum requirements to
so that's 60
get
out of 200, did you say?
yeah, 200.
Okay.
220. So 60 out of 220, and then 20 people will be given provisional offers should they get the 2-1, and should they get the 2-1. So that's how I learned about the transfer, and throughout the 2 years, what really motivated me to continue pursuing medicine was being situated at a hospital. So St George's is unique in the fact that the university is situated in one wing of the hospital. All the lecture theatres, labs, all the facilities are within that single wing. So every day I'd be walking into the hospital and I'd see doctors, I'd see patients, I'd see people being like wheeled in and out, ambulances, and it really reminded me of why I'd chosen to go to St George's in the first place. So yeah, that's what kept me going.
And did you ever feel worried, Fahmida, that you wouldn't get this place? Like, how threatening was that environment? Because obviously it's quite, I can imagine it was probably quite cutthroat, because you know everyone is here for the same reason, and it was possibly even more intense than, you know, applying for medicine as an undergraduate in year 13, because you're literally constantly surrounded by people who want the same thing as you.
It was very, very daunting. I remember, I think in the first week of our lectures, the lecturer asked who wants to do medicine, and I feel like everyone put their hands up, and I didn't, because I just thought there's no way I'm going to get in. But like, I feel like you get a lot of support from the older years, the undergrads and the transfers as well, and they really encourage you. And if you're part of the Islamic Society at George's, they really, really encourage you, and they provide you with so much support and motivation. And I think that's what really helped me and kept me going throughout the years.
Okay. That's always, you know, reassuring to have that help from older years, because obviously they've been through it, they've lived through it. Something that we have as well at Imperial, you know, especially Muslim medics, so we have, you know, older years. And
Muslim medics and Islamic Society, like in general, they
always
provide so much support.
So helpful.
Yeah, tutorials and everything, but also just like moral support as well, helping you just, you know, deal with the pressures of being a university student and like being a Muslim as well, which is quite integral to all of us.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I feel like just simply being a Muslim, you know, at university, you get so much support. Like all the Muslims kind of come to you, they like flock to you. They're like, do you need any help? You know, how's it going for you? Is that the same in George's?
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Fahmida was actually that figure for me, which is amazing, because I've known Fahmida since probably about first year, because I knew at our university, and I'm sure at most universities they have a peer mentoring scheme, so we call it mums and dads. Yeah. So our good friend, mutual friend, was my mother, and then that's how I got to know Fahmida too.
So I'm her aunt.
Yeah.
Oh, please. I think I've got a great grandson somewhere. Okay, so Mohammed, do you think that if you hadn't got into medicine the first time round, do you think that you would have considered doing a transfer, or do you think you would have changed your, you know, career choice completely?
Honestly, okay, so my answer now is going to be different from what my answer would have been then. So then I was very, very motivated into getting into medicine and everything. So I probably would have considered taking a gap year, reapplying, because I'd have achieved the A-level grades. Alhamdulillah, I got the right grades to get in, so that would have given me a lot of leverage like in other universities. And also there was this scheme that was being run by the University of Leeds, which is my local university, where if you fulfill certain criteria, like if you go to school nearby and you live in certain postcodes, etc., wherever, they then have this thing where they lower your offer as well to ABB. And so that's so I wasn't eligible for it at the time, but with some negotiation, some of my friends would manage to that offer lowered for them as well. It wasn't necessary, but because I was a local, it would have given more priority for me to get in.
Is that like a foundation year, or is it not
No. So basically what it is that, so it's very useful for the viewers to know if they live in the north of England. So I believe if you fulfill certain criteria, if you live in West Yorkshire, so if you live in certain postcodes, and if you are from like a low-income background, or you have existing siblings studying at the university in medicine as well, your offer gets automatically lowered from AAA to ABB. And if you achieve those grades,
that's a big jump.
Yes.
you go straight in to first year of medicine. No foundation year, nothing. Yeah.
Oh, that's very useful to know. I don't know about that. I was only
Yeah.
aware of the St George's one, and I know that King's also does a foundation year where, if depending on your circumstances, where you live, you have to meet a bunch of criteria. But then they do let you come on, and join their foundation scheme where it's 6 years. You have to do an extra year.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's again another useful thing to know for viewers who are worried that they might not get into medicine the first time.
Yeah.
But sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I guess now looking back on it, I probably would have pursued a different career. I probably would have maybe tried engineering, my hand at engineering or something like that. Mainly because I guess if I'm going to be honest, I wouldn't have the same amount of resilience and grit to like go through what you guys have been through and go through this biomedical science transfer route, such high competition ratios, everything. I would have probably chosen the easy option and done a very perfectly respectable degree at a perfectly respectable university. But getting into medicine was such a long and arduous process. And the thought of going through that again was a little bit daunting because you have to resit all of your admissions tests, rewrite your personal statement, go through everything, and also in that gap between university and sixth form, that 1 year gap, if you don't manage to get in, you're going to have to prove that you've actually done something very useful with that, which can be quite difficult as well. So like I said, I probably would have chosen something else. But I don't regret doing medicine right now,
Yeah.
just to clarify.
I know what you mean. I'm not sure if even I would have the resilience to do what you guys did. Because I remember, when we did speak, you were telling me about how hard you were working and everything. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I really respect it because I don't know if I would have that same resilience and that same stamina. It is stamina, isn't it? To keep that same level of work ethic throughout, it's by no means easy. So kudos.
But Tasnim, we're not, what we've done isn't even is nothing compared to people that we know. We have friends who have applied at undergraduate level and failed to get in, at graduate level again for the transfer and failed to get the transfer, then applied for undergrad and postgraduate medicine after that, maybe had to take 2 or 3 gap years to apply in different cycles, but they have got in. So where there's a will, there's always a way.
Yeah, especially when your intentions are right.
Yeah.
You're doing it for the right reasons. There's nothing to stop you. But I'm just thinking, I honestly don't know if I'd be able to do what these guys did. I know it's 2 years more? 1 year?
No, so Tasnim, we were in the same, we were in the same high school, the same year group, and then you went into, when you were doing your 3rd year of medicine, I was doing my the 3rd year of my bachelor's degree, so biomedical science, and then the next year you did your BSc as well.
And then you went straight to 3rd year?
Yeah, so we're in the same year.
Oh yeah.
We're in the same year.
Oh yeah.
We
so
are.
you both graduated in 2021?
2021, yeah.
Oh.
So it ends up being 6 years in total, but that's the same amount of time as if I had gotten into medicine initially and done a bachelor's, I'd done a BSc, yeah.
So time-wise, you're not at a loss, but it's
No.
just that additional stress that you had to go
Yeah.
through, and you had to work really hard,
Yeah.
which is still difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah. So Mohammed, just going back to you, can you please tell us about when you realised that you wanted to study medicine? Is it again the work experience, or?
I don't think there was a single discrete point in that time that I could recall that I really, really wanted to say, I want to study medicine now. I think it was more of a gradual progression, really.
Okay.
Just more of things fell into place, and I was just nudged and pushed towards it by some of my teachers, some of my classmates and everything. Okay, this is probably something that you should do because you really like this and everything. I guess when it came to applying for work experience, writing my personal statement and everything, I was like, okay, yeah, maybe I actually do want to do this. Yeah, I guess when it came to actually starting to apply for it, and because you have to put dedication into the application process, that's when it makes or breaks it for you. If you really want to do it, you carry on with the application, or if you don't, maybe you should consider a different career choice. So that was probably the point. Yeah.
And okay, Famida, do you think that? Sorry, 1 second. Do you think that the St George's transfer scheme is promoted enough?
No, definitely
Okay.
not. As in, just like Tasnim, I had never even heard of St George's University until I applied for it, and I'd never even heard of a transfer program. I think you only ever hear about it if you're going through clearing or if you really want to do biomed at St George's. I don't think it's promoted enough at all. Or maybe I just didn't research it enough, I'm not entirely sure. But I definitely don't hear about it enough. People that I speak to about it, they don't know about it either, so I don't think it is.
Oh, I found out through word of mouth. So there was literally, when I was applying for medicine, there was a girl in the year above me, Aisha Razak.
Yeah. I know.
So she was like, she really helped me out a lot, this girl. And she told me about, all the different options I could go for and how I should, as my, my backup option, pick biomedical sciences at St George's because of this scheme. But if it wasn't for her, if she hadn't told me, I don't think I would have found out. So I think like a big thing is word of mouth, because there's nothing to outwardly, they don't promote themselves in that way much, do they?
No, and I can understand that because the degree is biomedical science, and they probably do want, as the majority of students will be graduating with that degree, they do want students who are interested in research, interested in science, and like George's pride themselves on being the leading centre of research in infection and immunity. So I suppose they do want students who are genuinely interested in the degree rather than students who are using it as a stepping stone into medicine.
They must be aware that most people do use it as a stepping stone though by now, right?
It's funny though that you mentioned that the transfer scheme is unknown, because especially in my year back in sixth form, everyone who was applying for medicine knew about this transfer scheme, and like so many people put this as a backup option.
I think it depends on like the school that you go to and how many people tend to apply for medicine from that school, because I feel like the school that we went to, a lot of people knew about St George's, and I think it's just because of the nature of our school, the fact that people are very competitive and were applying for medicine. Was that the case?
My school was lovely, but I think on average there'll be like 5 or 6 applicants to medicine a year. So it was like a very rare thing, and if you were deciding to apply for medicine, you'd get like special mentorship by a teacher, but there weren't like classes or any programs run by the school for applicants. So it just wasn't discussed in our school really, or in our sixth form.
And I have a few friends who are in that same situation where they it was so hard for them to kind of enter medicine because, they didn't really have the resources, the people to advise them, on what they should do and when they should do it. So I think it's something that I probably took for granted at the time where, I had all these people telling me, you should do this, you should do that, and just looking back at it in hindsight, I just realised how lucky I was to have those things at that point in time.
Yeah. But something I would say is that if somebody doesn't have that system in place, a really good place to start is by contacting the universities themselves, because there are so many, I suppose, secret schemes like this at lots of different universities, and you don't know unless you ask them directly. And these things change so regularly on a yearly basis even. George's is not the only university that has a transfer scheme. So many universities do, but they might not, most of them won't advertise it. And so many universities have like the foundation programs that you were discussing. Like at George's, they also offer reduced entry requirements to students from impoverished or difficult backgrounds, and they don't advertise that anywhere either. So
Wow, I didn't even know that.
yeah, they do.
Wow.
No, it's definitely worth doing that, as you said, because, you've got nothing to lose. You might as well keep doing it. It's like the same as applying for work experience. Just keep trying until, you get a response that you want. But on that note, we're going to cut for a short break and we'll see you soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome back to Pathways. In the first segment, we discussed different transfer routes to medicine that St George's offers, as well as some other universities. So Mohammed talks about Leeds and its worth and how it's worth actually researching the different schemes that universities have in place. But we're going to move on now. And before we actually talk about, how you're finding medicine right now, I just want to ask, have there been any role models, to anyone?
Do you want to begin?
Oh, okay. I think that your biggest role model has to be well, my biggest role model has to be my family. Well, specifically my mom, because she facilitates medicine. Like me studying medicine so far away. Like, you know, she does everything for me just so that I can study, and I'm sure that's the case for you as well, Famida. We've talked about this before, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
About how our mums literally, like, you know, just want us to study and do nothing else.
Exactly.
And, yeah, we wouldn't be here.
Oh, same here, literally. I don't do anything. I don't do anything.
Yeah.
And it's literally because I'm like, Mum, you told me to study medicine. You know what the terms and conditions are. No, I'm joking. No, my mum, you know, my parents, my dad as well, because I don't want him to go back home and my dad be like, you didn't say anything about me. Yeah, my mum and dad.
Dad's
literally
emotional support.
rocks. Yeah.
I do have to agree, like my parents do motivate me a lot. And obviously I'm living away from home because I live in the north of England.
Yeah.
So like they obviously financially support me, but they give me the moral support I need. You know, they call me most days and see how was your day, everything. And it's just little lifts like that which keep you going, you know.
How do you survive without curry?
Honestly, it's hard. And I don't know how to cook curry as well.
Yeah, you need to learn, mate. It's been like, it's your 5th year now, you need to learn soon. Okay, so Famida, do you want to tell us about a typical day as a medical student? So what do you do?
Okay, so I'll start off with what I'm doing at the moment. So at the moment I am on placement at East Surrey Hospital. So that I was living with Tasnim for a while, actually, in hospital accommodation over there for a few weeks. So a typical day usually involves waking up at 8 a.m. or actually no, 7:30 a.m.
I was going to say that's
No, 7:30 a.m. And ward round starts around 8:30 a.m. So that's when you go around with the doctors and you see every single patient, and then you can often help out, write the notes, and they get you to do like a few procedures here and there. Sometimes we have teaching throughout the day, and if we don't have that, we usually just help out with the doctors, attend surgeries if there's anything interesting going on. But that's pretty much it. I think in final year, it's mostly about assistantships.
Yeah.
So they treat you like an F1 doctor and they get you to do a few things. Whereas I think in other years, it's more about learning
Yeah.
and stuff, yeah.
Agreed. I feel like since I've begun 5th year, everything is really about, you know, you have to really work on your presentation skills. Your clinical skills need to be amazing and everything, rather than actually learning. It's all about how you conduct yourself, how you report and communicate back to the consultant. That stuff is really important. Okay, Mohammed, what are you doing right now at university?
So actually, me and our host Tasnim have just finished a week of teaching skills, basically. So as part of our degree, and I believe it's a GMC requirement actually for all medicine courses, is to actually learn how to teach, develop our skills when it comes to teach as well, because obviously when we graduate, we're also going to have to teach the next generation of doctors as well. So it was good training for that. And we had quite a few fun exercises as well, like we made our own presentations, taught like other like subjects like pathology, etc., all that kind of stuff. And before teaching skills, I just did a placement in neurosurgery as well, which is very interesting as well. And the doctor actually let me do some stuff in the surgery, which is very nice. So I was actually drilling into people's skulls and opening them up, which I apologise to the viewers, it might not be the most pleasant information, but for medical students, it's quite the feat.
Living the dream.
Yes, indeed.
Do you know what? I think I prefer medicine over surgery. I prefer being on the ward and actually talking to patients rather than, because I feel like, you know, in surgery, I feel like the beauty of medicine comes from the communication with the patients and actually talking to them. But obviously surgery is different in itself. So like, you know, you have to have an eye for it, and I just get a bit bored when I'm in there.
It's a different culture as well in surgery. Like it's a markedly different culture. In medicine, it's more open communication and everything. And so in surgery, there is very much a hierarchy. Like the more experience you have, the more you basically can talk and more you can voice your opinions. And when you're a medical student, you're basically a wallflower. You're just observing and not doing anything. So when you do get to do stuff
Empowering.
like that, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
I did, that was for your specialty choice placement, right? So basically we have one placement where we just pick what we want to do. So other than like obs and gynae. So in 5th year, or in our penultimate year of medicine, we basically study the specialties, the medical specialties like obstetrics and gynecology, psychiatry, pediatrics, things like that. But at Imperial, we have one term where we can pick what we want to do. So I did general and acute medicine. So I was on A&D for a month in a very, very far away hospital, which took me 2 hours to get to.
Where were you?
I was in Twickenham.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
so far, literally. But go on, Tazin, tell us about what you've been up to.
Okay, I'm on a really interesting placement right now. I'm on my psychiatry placement. So I'm working with something called the home treatment team. So it's really interesting because I've never done this before. It very much involves working in the community and treating patients within the community. So visiting them in their own houses, giving them medication with the nurses and the doctors, and also helping, well, I say helping, watching the consultants conduct mental health assessments. Psychiatry is so unique because mental health is such a big issue. I think statistically 1 in 5 of us will go through some sort of
Yeah.
mental health condition at some point in our lives, and just seeing how much is available for people from the NHS has been really eye-opening. I didn't even know that these facilities existed before starting this placement, so it's been amazing so far.
I feel like home visits really brings you back down to earth and opens your eyes because you see like the real living conditions of people rather than them in a hospital setting. You realise, this is their, their operational capacity, this is what they can actually do, and they literally stay in one room, a lot of them, because they can't move. And it really does bring you back down to earth and remind you why you're studying medicine, right? Okay, I think we should, kind of give some tips to the New Year 13s about how they should go about their applications for UCAS, because the deadline's coming up soon, isn't it? Has anyone got any personal statement tips?
I didn't write a medicine personal statement, so I can't really help there. But what I can help with is regarding if they do get an interview or if they want to make a particular point in their personal statement, but they feel like students sometimes might feel like they don't have medical work experience. Medical work experience is so hard to attain.
Yeah, it is.
It's not uncommon to contact hundreds of GP surgeries and hospitals and still hear nothing back. But please never feel that you cannot use non-medical work experience to show that you have like medical competencies. Like everyone knows that doctors have to be just, doctors have to maintain certain codes of confidentiality, and doctors have to have particular principles that perhaps will be assessed within the personal statement, and you can display that by talking about non-clinical work experience. So at my interview I talked about my part-time job in Clark's, and my interviewers loved that. So
Or just being in a kind of caring environment or caregiving setting is enough as well. Like you can go and volunteer in a care home, you can volunteer in some hospitals as well. So I used to actually volunteer at King's College Hospital for a while, and that volunteer scheme was again something that a lot of people didn't know about. So I don't know if it's still running, but if anyone's interested, you should definitely go and look that up. But yeah, even, working as a healthcare assistant, volunteering, doing special courses, those things are all very important. And I feel like people overestimate the value of actually witnessing and observing procedures, in surgery or things like that. Just because if you saw a total hip replacement doesn't mean that, your admissions tutor is going to think, wow, this person is ready to become a medic. It's about how insightful you are and what you take away from that experience and how much you understand the profession from what you've actually seen. Yeah, so is there anything else that anyone has to add about, writing a personal statement for medicine?
Well, I guess when it comes to writing a personal statement, I found, obviously I was successful in getting in, and what I put in my personal statement was affinity for science, I guess. You show your academic prowess, show your desire for actually studying medicine, what you learnt from your work experience, any other hobbies and stuff like that, because you also have to demonstrate that you have a life outside of medicine.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to demonstrate that you can maintain a work-life balance or study-life balance in this case, which is essential because you don't want to be bogged down with everything, because I don't know this, but all the doctors that I speak to, they say your time at medical school is the easiest time in your medical career. It's going to get much harder.
Exactly.
So you need to demonstrate that you'll be able to manage being in medical school, and that should be reflected in your personal statement. I can't say for people who plan to apply to Oxbridge, but that's a very different type of personal statement you have to write. It has to be a lot more scientific based. But for obviously for Imperial College and other universities, it's usually like a mishmash of basically everything. And I guess the tip is just sell yourself as a person, because you are competing against thousands of applicants. So make sure it's top notch, and make sure that there's people who've either, like, for example, your tutors in sixth form,
Yeah.
or other people that you know, family, friends, who've actually managed to get in, make them review it as well. And for example, our university, especially Muslim Medics, runs a workshop called PopMed, so potential medics. And it's a whole day to go through your personal statements, interview practice, etc., which quite a lot of people come to, like a couple hundred, I believe. So make sure that you find like outreach schemes and everything to help you and maximize your chances of getting in, because that personal statement is key to getting in.
Yeah, it's literally integral for your whole application, because that's the kind of differentiating factor between you and other medical students, because everyone will have very similar UKCAT scores, BMAT scores. These are some of the admissions tests that medical applicants have to undertake. And it's also very important to remember that you can make the key word is personal in personal statement. You can make it very personal to yourself and literally make it stand up from others, because you can draw on your own experiences that you've kind of had. And it's also very important to actually talk about, don't say I am hardworking, I am motivated, but it's about showing what have you actually done to show that you're hardworking. Where is the evidence to show that you're hardworking and motivated? It's about drawing on your experiences and what you've actually done, and that will again show your dedication to medicine as well, because people will think if they're doing all this at this stage alongside their A-levels, they're clearly, they will have the stamina to survive in medical school, right? Okay, I think we should also quickly go over some of the medical admissions tests. So do you mind telling us about the UKCAT?
Yeah, so actually, interestingly, for Imperial College, the UKCAT is not required. The name's actually changed now to UCAT, because it's no longer just used in the UK, it's used in Australia and other countries as well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for the viewers, UCAT is the name. And for me, it was the admission test that I really did not like.
Same.
I preferred the BMAT,
So did I.
which is the exam the admissions test that we sit for Imperial College and a couple of other unis as well. And the UKCAT tests skills like your verbal reasoning, your mathematical abilities, abstract reasoning. So there's a section dedicated to seeing patterns and shapes, and sounds easy, it really isn't.
No.
Honest to God, it really isn't.
They look the same, they'll
Yeah.
blur into one.
Yeah, it's extremely subjective, the test as well, but there is an evidence base to show that it is a very good way of determining who's suitable for the profession or not. So I guess you have to trust that. Yeah, but overall, for the universities I applied to that did need the UKCAT, it was Queen Mary University of London, or actually Barts,
yeah.
that's London.
They're very
Medical School.
specific about what's
Yes, but it's Barts of the London Medical School.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Sheffield University. So they were the ones that required it, and they were on my list, so that's why I did it, yeah.
Okay, and why did you prefer the BMAT?
So I preferred the BMAT because it drew from a lot of the subjects I was already studying. So there was elements of biology, elements of chemistry, a little bit of physics, which wasn't my strong suit, so I had to do a bit of revision on maths as well. So there was already stuff tested at GCSE, AS level, just at a slightly broader scale. So it was something I was very familiar with, very comfortable with, and I could actually properly revise for. Because the UKCAT, you can revise for as much as you want, but some questions will throw you off on this today, and when you've got the pressure running on you, you might interpret things very differently.
Yeah, so the UCAT is for, it feels weird saying that, doesn't roll off the tongue,
Yeah.
because I'm not used to it. Yeah, so the UCAT is for most medical schools in the UK, so just for the viewers that aren't familiar with the terminology. And the BMAT is for a few select medical schools in the UK, including Imperial College London, UCL, Oxbridge, and also I think Brighton and Sussex Medical School.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the BMAT is almost more academic in the sense that it asks you traditional, scientific questions, mathematical questions, and you also have to write an essay. Whereas with the UKCAT, it's not standardized as such. You have like a random mix of like some abstract questions, and there are ways to prepare, but it's not as structured as the BMAT. It kind of depends on how you prefer to learn.
The test setting is also very different. So the UKCAT, you sit it almost like you're sitting your driving theory test. You go to a test centre, you do it on a computer, it's multiple choice. And BMAT, it's like more familiar as an exam, all written, working out, calculators, all that kind of stuff. So that's also makes it better for me anyway.
I think that before we wrap up, I just want to hear about everyone's aspirations for the future. So Famida, if you could please start and tell us
Yes,
about
of
what you want to
course.
do.
So I really, really like obs and gynae, so obstetrics and gynecology. It's something that really, really interests me. So that's something I really want to go into. If that doesn't happen, then hopefully maybe do GP with a bit of reproductive medicine on the side. But yeah, that's what I want to do.
And why do you like obs and gynae so much?
I'm not sure. I think it's just something that even when I was a biomed student, I chose science of reproduction as a module in my final year. I don't know what it is about female anatomy that interests me so much, and I think it's just like seeing women give birth and then being able to assist and helping families that can't have children. I think it's just something that's always really, really sat well with me, I guess. Yeah.
It's definitely a very rewarding, thing to see, and the effects are very immediate as well. Because when you see that baby, it's just seeing it like it's just very visual, the results, and also. I don't know, I think we need a lot more Muslim women in that field as well, so I'm glad you do want to pursue that. Tasnim, what about you?
So Fahmida and I are literally the same person. So I'm also really interested in obstetrics and gynecology, and I recently came off that placement, and that was that really cemented it for me, I feel, because got to see how practical obs and gynae is and how varied it is. Like on one particular day, a doctor might see a woman with cysts and then may proceed to help someone who's having a miscarriage and then may deliver a perfectly healthy baby. And it's just so varied, so different, and there's so many opportunities to pursue specific interests within that, but I'm also interested in GP and endocrinology too.
That's quite a broad range, isn't it? Yeah. No, I'll tell you about my opinions afterwards, actually. Let's hear about Mohammed first.
For me, I'm very impressed that you know exactly what you want to do. For me, I'm a little bit still undecided.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's very early on, but I think I would rather pursue something more medicine rather than surgery, even though I did say it was really exciting. I think for me, I'd rather prefer the communication aspect of it. But also, I think I'd also like to do other things alongside medicine, possibly. So like me and Tasnim, we both studied a management BSc, and so I'd like to do something along the lines of management in the NHS to some degree.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting. It's good that you actually took something away from that BSc. So it's nice to see that you actually that came out wrong.
It implies that you didn't.
No, but it's nice that you're actually implementing what you've learned, that's different. I'm not sure, to be honest. But I like quite general medicine, so I'm considering GP. I also really like pediatrics. I like acute medicine. And the thing that kind of ties all of them together is the fact that they're very general specialties. I don't like, honing into one specialty so much that you kind of do lose sight of, other things. Yeah. But yeah, that's my take on it. But thank you so much for, coming as guests on this show today. We really appreciate your insight, and I'm sure our guests really appreciate what you had to say. And just to summarize, we went through a range of topics today. So we talked about, the different routes into medicine. We talked about what it's like to be a medical student, and also how to get into medicine. So what kind of things does the application process entail? And I really hope that this was useful for you. And I'm surprised that no one called in because this would have been a very good opportunity for you to learn, from real life medical students right here. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.